Hey, everybody. Hi, I'm Lisa McMann, and it is really great to be here with you guys today. Can you hear me okay? Um, Wanted to just tell you that I think what I'm going to do basically is maybe tell you a little bit about my books, and hopefully, well, I'll have a chance to possibly even read a little chapter to you. And if we're all lucky, you might be able to catch a glimpse of my kitties. They're running around under my feet right now. So, um, let's see. Well, you probably know my teen books, and in case you don't, I'm going to show you. This is Wake, and it's about a 17-year-old girl named Janie who gets sucked into other people's dreams. And, she can't really control it. She can't tell anybody because they think she's a total freak. So Janie kind of lives on the fringe, and she's cursed with this ability that she doesn't want and can't control. And then she gets sucked into the dreams of a sort of a mysterious guy named Cable, who dreams about killing someone, and he also dreams about her. So that is the story of Wake. I have book 2 in that trilogy is Fade, and then book 3 is called Gone. So that's the Wake trilogy, and those were my first books that came out. This past year, I had a new book come out that is called Criers Cross. And Criers Cross is about a small town in Montana where teens from the one-room high school begin to disappear. And our main character, Kendall, sort of has to figure out exactly what's going on in this tiny little farming community. The whole place is in an uproar. And Kendall, who actually has OCD and has to struggle with that a little bit, is probably the only one who can do anything about this tragedy. So that's Criers Cross. Now, what I was thinking is that I'd introduce to you my new book, which is called The Unwanteds, and it just came out August 30th. But before I do that, I want to quick show you Dear Bully, which is it's a collection of stories from various young adult and children's authors. We talk about bullying, and I really hope you guys will check this out if you have it in your library or pick it up in the store, and just take a look at this book. It's really awesome. There are very short stories by 70 different young adult and children's authors within it. So that's just fantastic. And it just came out about a month ago, so we're happy to have that out too. The Unwanteds. This is my new book, and it just came out August 30th, I think I mentioned. It's the first in a series, and I think we'll have about 7 books in the series. So, I would like to, I think I'm going to read, the first chapter to you, if that's cool with you. So, here we go. To put my glasses on. All right. Chapter 1 is called The Purge. There was a hint of wind coming over the top of the stone walls and through the barbed wire sky on the day Alexander Stowe was to be purged. Alex waited in the dusty commons of Quill and felt the light breeze cooling the sweat on his upper lip. His twin brother Aaron stood beside him, their parents behind, and all around the entire community of Quill watched and waited, the bland looks of sleeping fish on their faces. Mr. Stowe pressed his finger hard into Alex's back. A final poke in the kidneys, a last goodbye, Alex thought, or a warning not to run. Alex glanced at Aaron, whose face showed the tiniest emotion. Scared, was it? Or sad? Alex didn't know. The High Priest Justine, her long white hair undisturbed despite the breeze, rose to her full height and observed the silent crowd. She began without introduction or ado, for a purge was neither exciting nor boring. It just was, as many things just were in Quill. There were nearly 50 13-year-olds this year. The people of Quill waited to hear which of these teenagers had been marked as wanted or necessary, and, by process of elimination, which of them remained to be purged. Alex scanned the group and their families around the giant half-circle of the amphitheater. He knew some of them, not all. Alex's mind wandered as the High Priest Justine announced first the names of the Wanteds, and he startled only slightly as the High Priest spoke Aaron's name. Aaron, who'd had nothing to worry about, sighed anyway in relief when he was among the 15 names called. The necessaries were next. 13 names were read. Alexander Stowe was not one of those either. Even though Alex knew that he was unwanted and had known ever since his parents had told him over breakfast when he was 10, the knowledge and 3 years of preparation weren't enough to stop the sweat that pricked his armpits now. It was down to a mere formality, unless there was a surprise, which there sometimes was, but it didn't matter. Everyone stood motionless until the final 20 names were called. Among the unwanted, Alexander Stowe. Alex didn't move, though his heart fell like a cement block into his gut. He stared straight ahead as he'd seen other unwanteds do in the past years. His lip quivered for a moment, but he fought to still it. When the governors came over to him, he put his arms out for them to shackle with rusty iron bands. He made his eyes icy cool before he glanced over his shoulder at his parents, who remained unemotional. His father nodded slightly and finally took his finger out of Alex's back after the shackles were secure. That was a minor relief, but what did it matter now? Aaron sniffed once quietly, catching Alex's attention in the silent amphitheater. The identical boys held a glance for a moment. Something like a jolt of energy passed between them, and then it was gone. Goodbye, Aaron whispered. Alex swallowed hard, held the stare a second more as the governors tugged at him to follow, and then broke the connection and went with the governors to the waiting bus that would take him to his death. So that is the first chapter of the Unwanteds, and I have a kind of a cool story behind how we got the idea for the Unwanteds. And, the Unwanteds basically happened about 5 years ago. My children came home from school, and they had a letter from the school, and the letter said that the school was going to have to cut some of the arts programs. And I was really bummed about that because my kids really like school, and my son loves to draw, my daughter's in theater, and she loves to sing. And so I was so bummed out. I said, oh man, you guys, this really, I'm really sorry about this. It kind of feels like you guys are being punished for being creative. And then, as it happens sometimes with writers, we get an idea, and that popped into my head, and so I said out loud, wait a second, what if there was a world where children were punished for being creative? And I said it out loud, and my son, who was 12 at the time, said, not just punished, sent to your death. And I said, yeah! And so that's how the whole idea for the Unwanteds came about. 7 books in this series I'm planning, and yes, I do know how it all ends, and I can't wait to get there. I've written the second book already. Hopefully that'll be out next summer, August sometime. And Yeah, so I'm also working on some new books in the teen realm, and let me just grab something off a shelf here. Okay, so this is my next teen book, and it's called Dead to You. And this one comes out February 7. So that is coming up in like less than 4 months. I can't believe it. So Dead to You is about a 16-year-old boy named Ethan who was abducted when he was 7. And now he has just discovered he's just found his parents again and his family, but he doesn't really remember them anymore. He's been brainwashed. So he goes back to live with them, but he doesn't have any memory of much of anything at all, just a little bit of a glimpse here and there. So the dynamics are sort of tense. There's a new child in the family that he never knew, and she was born after he was abducted. So there's some tension there. And it's my first realistic fiction novel. So realistic is fun to do, and it was a nice departure from the paranormal. So, but I think you'll still like it. It's probably, if you like the paranormal stuff, it's the characters are very much the same as what I like to do in my other books. So it just doesn't have a paranormal element. So I hope you like that. And I see we've got some questions coming in. So I'm going to just take a look at these. We have a question from Beatty White, who says, loved the Wake series. What inspired that? And that's a great question. I had the inspiration for the Wake series from a dream. I had a dream that I was in my husband's dream, watching what he was dreaming about, which you just have to think it through a second. So here I am. I'm standing inside my husband's dream, watching the dream happening, and that's what I was dreaming about. So when that happened, I kind of woke up after that dream in the middle of the night, and I thought, wow, that was kind of weird. And I wrote it down because I like to keep a notepad next to my bed. And in the morning when I woke up, I looked at it, and I was like, wow, this is still a good idea. So I couldn't stop thinking about it, actually, for, I want to say about a month or so. I just thought about it. I didn't write anything down. I just wanted to figure out who is the character here who's getting sucked into people's dreams. And at first I thought, well, what if she could control it and kind of use it as revenge for some of the people who are mean to her or whatever. And then I decided that maybe it would be a lot more exciting if she couldn't control it and if she didn't really want visibility. And that's when I started writing, and that's how everything came about after that. So it was just a wonderful, fun process with that whole trilogy. And I just love Janie and Cable, and I'm glad that you do too. Wake was a departure from more traditional fantasy. This new series sounds more traditional, is that right? Yes, the new series, The Unwanteds, is traditional, sort of traditional fantasy. It's actually dystopian and fantasy combined, like a magical fantasy. So, I guess if you look really closely at the top line on the cover of the book, you can see it says The Hunger Games meets Harry Potter. I'm not very good at this. Sorry about that. But that, I didn't say that about my own book. Anyone who does that would be laughed at. But it was actually Kirkus Reviews who sort of coined that and said that's, a good way to think of it. You've got the Hunger Games, you've got a dystopian world, which you heard about when I was reading it to you. That is a world where the government has taken over and gone too far in trying to create a perfect society. So it's not a utopia, it's a dystopia. So kind of like the Hunger Games, you have that feel of, total governmental control in a bad way. And, the Harry Potter part comes in with the magic, although I actually think there's a little more of a C.S. Lewis, Narnia influence on this book rather than Harry Potter, but I'll definitely take that compliment from Kirkus Reviews. That was pretty cool. Let's see. I have another question. How old are my kids? Yes, they are teens. I have 2 kids. When we started writing the Unwanteds, they were 12 and 9. But now, that was 5 years ago, now they are both having birthdays soon. They will be 18 and 15. It's crazy. My son says he's going to go skydiving on his 18th birthday. Good times. They are both still in high school, and a senior and a sophomore. That's what we have. So, good. They're great kids. I love them. In fact, speaking of the kids, we had so much fun with the Unwanteds when we were coming up with the ideas for the magical world. And there is a magical fantasy world where someone has been saving these Unwanteds all this time. So that is sort of the magical side of things. And we would come up with a lot of different spells and stuff together as a family. We'd kind of sit around the living room, and I'd say, okay, now what can you do, with a paintbrush? And then somebody said, well, you could paint yourself invisible. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I like that. And then I'd say, like, okay, what can you do with like a paperclip? Because all of the magical items are based on art supplies. So I said, paperclip, and my son was like, well, you could take a handful of paper clips and, throw them at your enemy, and they'd soar out and grab their clothing and stick them to the wall, and so then they'd be stuck there and they couldn't move. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But then my 9-year-old was like, what if there's not a wall there? Then, what do you stick to? And my son was like, well, it doesn't have to be a wall, it could be a tree. And then the daughter, the 9-year-old, was like, well, what if there's not a tree there? So, of course, we went through all of this, and my son said, well, then I think it would just drag the person all the way, as far as it took until it actually did hit something. And then I said, yeah, okay, now I'm interested. So, and then the 9-year-old, of course, says, well, what if there's nothing all the way around the whole world? Yeah. And so we determined that, well, if that happened, then this person would be dragged all the way around the whole world with the scatter clips until maybe one day, at just the right time, a giant moving van would come along and splat. And that would take care of that. So, but that was really fun because that's all kind of world building. And it's very important to have rules when you have magical items and when you have a different world that you're creating. You have to have rules. What does work and what doesn't work here? What strengths and what weaknesses do these different spells have? If you have a spell that can do everything, that's a boring book. You have to have limitations to things. So that was really, really fun. And then my son this summer, as a 17-year-old, I asked him if he would draw some illustrations for me, which he did. So he drew a picture of the Eliminators. Now, I don't know if any of you guys out there have actually read the Unwanteds yet, because it's kind of new, but he drew this, and let's see if we can get it closer. And so what we did with these is I decided to make a postcard, and I numbered them all and signed them all and dated them all the day of the first book, and I've been handing them out at my signings. And I'm actually going to be in Houston next weekend for the Tweens Read event, and I can't remember what high school. I can't think of it right now. But I will be there all day on Saturday. It's Pasadena, I think. Pasadena High School, does that sound right? I don't know. Anyway, it's on my website. If you go to lisamcmann.com and check the tour page, you'll find the information there. But you could also go to tweensread.com and get the info. But I will be there, and I will be handing out these cool postcards, all signed and dated and numbered, and they're collectible, and you can frame them and put them on the wall next to your awesome picture of me. And I also have a couple of other gifts that go along with that, like a little Unwanteds oval sticker. It says Unwanted on it, and you can like stick it on your notebook or your little brother or whatever. And I have a silly band for you as well. So if you show up to that, it's the Tweens Read event. Basically, it's geared toward 5th through 8th grade, but teens can come, adults can come, anyone can come. So I hope you do. Let's answer some more questions. Let's see. What is your writing process? Great question. Writing process. Basically, I get up in the morning and I have a Diet Coke, and then I answer my email, and I have this routine, and I kind of have to do all of that stuff before we get into anything else. Before I can really get into writing, I gotta go through my routine, and so I do that, and then by the time my kids leave for school around 7:40 a.m., I'm ready to get started, and I'll write all day long until I can't write anymore. And sometimes that happens to be right around the time my kids get home from school. Sometimes I can write longer than that. But that's when I'm writing, and I don't write like that every single day. Usually when I'm starting a new book, I will block off a month of my calendar, and I'll say, okay, we're not scheduling any events in our lives. We're not having any people over. We're not going out to dinner. I'm going to be here. I'm going to write, and I'm not committing to anything else except writing for like that whole month. And I usually can get the rough draft down in that time. Then I put it away for at least a few weeks, and hopefully a month if I have enough time. Then I'll go back and do some edits, and I'll do a couple of rounds of edits, and then I'll try and put it away for at least a week again, just to get away from it so I can come back fresh and do another couple of rounds of edits. And then when I feel like it's ready to be seen, I give it to my husband, and he reads it, and he tells me what needs to be fixed, or if he doesn't understand something. And then usually I say, well, what do you know, and then, then I'm like, okay, you're right. I probably should fix this. So he's pretty awesome. He's wandering around here somewhere, but he may pop in a little bit so you can meet him. Oh, here he comes.
Where am I?
There you are.
Oh, hi guys.
That's Matt. So, anyway, where was I? Yes, so that's how I do my writing, and then usually when I'm on tour, I'm not really writing, but I might be doing some edits from my editor and working on that kind of thing. Let's see. Another question here. I do judge books by their covers. I know. But this looks great. Thank you. I think that came in right around the time I was talking about the Unwanteds, or it might have been Dead to You. But whatever the case, I'm glad you like the cover. I love both of them. They're wonderful. I love all my covers. I've been very lucky with covers. Next question. Have you ever thought about maybe writing about Janie and Cable's child if they were to have any, or maybe about them 2 or a few years later? I think about that. I think about what their future looks like. Definitely do. I have never been convinced, though, that they need another book. And unless I can come up with something absolutely stunning, I don't want to write another book because I think it would be a disappointment. We've got the trilogy, and I hope that I left it so that people could sort of imagine for themselves what they would like to see happen with Janie and Cable. Um, so, yeah, I don't think I'm going to write another book. I never want to rule that out, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to. But I'm really glad you like the series. I love Janie's character, strong girl. Thank you very much. I really think it's important to write strong girls. And if you liked to read books about girls who are very strong, check out Crier's Cross, because Kendall, with her OCD, has to overcome so much more than the average person when trying to figure out what's going on in their small town where not just any kid is disappearing, but someone who's very close to her. So she's a wonderfully strong character, and she's sort of modeled after my own daughter. So there's a little tidbit for you. Are there any authors you get giddy about meeting? Oh my goodness, yes. All of them. Well, I have to tell you a story. When Wake first came out, I found out that I was going to tour with Cassandra Clare, and I thought I was going to die, as you can imagine. So she writes the Mortal Instrument series, and that was quite something, quite awesome. I met Neil Gaiman a couple of years ago, which was really awesome. I was sitting at a table at the ALA banquet for the Newbery and Caldecott Awards, and that's where like the person who wins the Newbery and the Caldecott get to talk, and they give their acceptance speech and they get their medal and stuff. And at my table was John Cheska, who's absolutely awesome, and he said, "Oh, do you want me to introduce you?" Because I was going, "Hey, there's Neil Gaiman, oh my gosh." And so I'm like, yes, that'd be awesome. So John brought me over to Neil, and I shook his hand, and I got to say hi, and he told me he was nervous, and it was really cute, and it was awesome. So that was a cool moment. But yeah, I love authors, and I think they're all rock stars. So, except for me, but I'm just normal. Don't be afraid to meet me. I'm normal. Let's see. Yay, dystopian! Yes, okay. That was funny. We have... What's the most touching message you've got from readers about your book, The Unwanteds? Oh man, it's so cool because I've been on tour for about 6 weeks, and I've been all over the country. And I got a whole pack full of thank you notes, letters that some of the students had drawn, and we were just looking at them a minute ago. Hang on, I think I may have lost you. There we go. All right, cool. Okay, I think we're back. All right, yeah, can you see me? Somebody tell me if you can see me. But yes, so let's see, what were we just talking about? That was really weird. I don't know if we lost you or if that was just a commercial. Anyway, gotta love Ustream, this is great. Oh, the most touching message was, I just heard from people who said, I really like to draw and I don't dare to tell anybody about it, or I really like to write stories, but if I told my parents or my sister or my brother or my friend, they would just laugh at me. And so, yeah, here's one right now. I love having my husband here. Dear Lisa McMann, thank you so much for letting us learn all about you. I find your own story of how you became a writer very inspiring. I'm really excited to read your books. You're a very creative person, and your ideas are fantastic. I love your style of writing, how your sense of humor was put into your books, and the amazing horror. Thank you so much for coming. I learned lots from you. You seem like a great writer. Aw, that was from Olivia. Nice. Aw. And here's another one. One piece of advice I will take with me is that you don't have to be an adult to write the best story in the whole universe. And that's something she's referring to, something I do when I go to school visits, and I talk about how I wanted to be a writer, but mostly only because I could get out of school. I didn't want to really be a writer. I just wanted to win a writing contest that would get me out of school for the day. And so they had it over and over again, and that was really cool. But it took me years to actually win that contest. And by the time I did win it in 4th grade, I was very happy about becoming a writer. So she's talking about that how you don't have to be an adult to write the most amazing story in the history of the universe. She says, thank you for coming to tell us about your new book. I hope that I get to read your book, The Unwanteds. I hope that your series will work out because it sounds like a very nice goal. Isn't that sweet? From Emily. P.S. Thanks for the pen. Oh, I remember this one because I gave her my pen because it broke. I think she wanted me to write on her arm, and it stopped working after that. So I said, here, have the pen instead. So anyway, fun letters. Love them. Let's see. That tween book convention is called Tweens Read Book Fest, and it's at Bobby Shaw Middle School in Pasadena. So in case you guys are up for that, I would love to meet you in person and sign your books. That'd be so cool. Do your kids give you feedback on your books? Absolutely, yes, they do. It's been really, really great and very convenient to have teenagers right here in the house. They do read my books before I send them out to anybody, and they give me honest feedback, and I mean it. It's really honest. My son Killian will be so blunt. It's almost funny, but he'll tell me. He told me recently on a book that I'm working on, well, it kind of feels like a soap opera threw up on the last 20 pages. So yeah, he's pretty blunt. Pretty awesome though, because that's exactly what happened, and I was too much in love with that part of the story to see it for myself, that it was just a little over the top. So I needed to pull back a little bit, and that's wonderful to have them help me with that kind of stuff. And I mentioned earlier with Crier's Cross that the main character is sort of modeled after my daughter Kennedy, and so I had Kennedy read that before I turned it in, and just to make sure that I got the whole OCD thing right. And so that was very cool. We have more questions. Let's see. If you have a great story idea, but somewhat stuck about plot points, how do you move around that obstacle? That is a really great question. Sometimes it helps to, if you get to a point where you're stuck, but you know stuff that's going to happen after that, sometimes it's okay to just leave that spot that's stuck and start writing a little bit later part of the book. That helps me at times when I know I've got to have something in this spot here, but I can't figure out how to get it fixed until I've written the end, and then I can go back and figure out what needs to happen leading up to that. Sometimes it helps me, if I get stuck, to just go to a movie or read a book or even go swimming or take a walk where I can just go somewhere, be by myself and be quiet and just let the thoughts flow freely. That gets me out of tough spots a lot, doing that kind of exercise or whatever it is, that alone time, or sometimes even when I'm cooking. it'll come to me. Something will come to me because my mind is occupied with other things rather than just trying and trying and trying so hard to fix this one problem I'm having. When you take your mind off of it, sometimes it comes, the answer comes to you then more easily. So that would be my advice, to not stress out about it and just try something else for a while. Go get some more inspiration from somebody else and kind of go like that. The Wake series dealt with lots of intense issues. Yes, it certainly did. Rape, alcoholism, abuse. Why so intense? I loved it, but don't usually expect fantasy to deal with issues like that. I guess, the Wake trilogy is paranormal, but really all the characters in it are real, and real people, and real stuff happens to real people. So I think that it's important to deal with stuff like that when you're dealing with real people. I also really wanted to write a story for the kid who actually experiences that stuff. And I wanted to write a story for the kids who don't. But I think we all need to know what's going on in the world. And teenagers, you guys are you're young adults. And the key word is adult. So I don't think it's a good idea to sort of shy away from any topic. A lot of the things that happen in the trilogy are based on real events, whether from my life or from other people's lives, or from news articles and stuff like that. So that's a great question, and yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I didn't know that we didn't talk about those things in fantasy stuff, but we did. I did. So I hope that it helps somebody. I think it will. In fact, I think it has already. I've heard from several people who can relate to the fact that Janie's mom is an alcoholic, and they have someone in their life who might be the same, and they write to me and they say thank you, for writing something where, I feel like the person who's stuck in a similar situation as mine is becoming a hero, and it makes me want to try harder to get out of the situation that I'm in. So I love hearing from teenagers about that kind of stuff. I'm glad that it makes an impact on them. Cool. Yes, a few other comments came in. I love Cassandra Clare's books too. Yes, absolutely. And one about, ha ha ha, he sounds very blunt. I think you're referring to my son. Yes, very blunt, but useful. And the last question I have here is, hello, my friend Julia lent me your latest book, and we both loved it. And she said, hi, by the way. Hi, Julia. How awesome you are to lend your friend a book, and that's wonderful. It's so fun, isn't it, to kind of share with your friends the different books you've been reading and talk about them and see if some people like this book and some people don't like it, and it's just fun to discuss it, That's pretty cool. So I think we're going to wrap everything up. Oh, it's Julia from the Max site. Oh, okay. Hi. That's wonderful. That's my kitty, by the way. I love Julia. And I love Max. Max Burkholder. He's on Parenthood. He's a friend of mine. He's the boy that plays the character named Max, who has Asperger's, so you should all watch Parenthood. I can't remember what night it's on because we always DVR it, but it's a fabulous show. But anyway, oh good, somebody else loves that show too. Looks like Rachel loves that show. I'm not sure how to say your name, but anyway, yes, isn't it fantastic? So cool. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being here today, and I hope I get to see some of you in Pasadena, Texas, for the Tweens Read Book Festival. And you can also tune in next week, Wednesday, for a virtual author visit with Adam Rex, who is a very cool guy, and I love him, and he's a brilliant illustrator, and a writer as well. So thanks so much, everybody.